There we go. So, did everybody have a good break? Good. Everybody feeling rested and recuperated? No? Well, I know you have an excuse. Welcome everybody. We are going to be doing web programming this semester. I am very happy to see all of you still here. Very happy indeed. You kind of like, you know me, I know you. We can dispense with a certain amount of the introductions, right? Oh, this is set to the wrong mode. As usual. So let me begin with a bit of a course overview for this course, as opposed to any other course you might be taking this semester. So we are going to be studying a panoply of web programming languages this semester. We will be running through a particular web development stack. Web development generally divides itself into two main areas of expertise. You have back-end development and you have front-end development. Generally speaking, front-end development is all of the parts of a web application that run locally on your own machine. In terms of the languages we will be studying, that includes HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Back-end development is everything going on the server, right? We will be getting into these sorts of concepts, although hopefully a certain amount of your knowledge from networking hopefully transfers at least a little bit. Hopefully you at least know the difference between a client and a server. But server-side, like back-end development generally is server-side programming. The languages we will be using for back-end development will be PHP, SQL, and a framework called Laravel right at the end. It's a jam-packed course. We will have to move through each of these topics quickly. So, within the context of, say the college program that I also teach in, many of these languages would have a full semester course dedicated to them, right? For example, not all of them. For example, HTML and CSS are one course in the diploma program. JavaScript is one course in the diploma program. PHP/SQL, that's a course in the diploma program. And Laravel is its own course in the diploma program as well, although it's an optional course in that program actually. So it is necessarily the case that we will not be able to deal with any one topic to the same depth that I would be if I was giving you a full course on it. And each one of these topics is worth a full course, right? Even at a bachelor's degree level. So, this is necessarily kind of a survey course. We're not going to be getting into a great deal of depth on any one of these languages. The overall thrust of the course is to give you a good general overview of web development, some of the key technologies that are used in web development. You should be conversant in web development. You should be able to scaffold yourself into developing any of these skills that you find relevant and interesting later on. Basically, I'm trying to give you, imagine we're doing a jigsaw puzzle, right? What I'm doing is I'm helping you guys find all of the edge pieces and the corner pieces. We're going to be putting those pieces together, right? The middle of the picture is something that you will need to do somewhere else because we only have time to do what we have time to do here. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that's what this, like, the overall philosophy that this course takes. Any questions so far? Yeah? Yes?
So we're going to be doing HTML, CSS, PHP, JavaScript, and this new optional Laravel framework.
And structured query language.
Okay.
Now, some of these are like bigger deals than other ones. If you want, I can tell you the ones that are the big deals right now. All right? JavaScript is a big deal. PHP is a big deal. HTML is important to understand correctly, but it's pretty easy. CSS is like, SQL is like, if you've understood the previous 5, SQL should come very easily and naturally. Laravel is difficult and right at the end, and the degree to which it's covered is like we can really only give you the barest introduction to Laravel in this course. So that's the one we'll be skipping over, sort of like a stone across the water the most. If you break this course down by week, I believe the language that we spend the most actual time on is PHP. Question?
Are we going to do it one after one or all at once?
Oh, no, don't worry. We will, there is actually a natural progression to these languages. You don't have to know all of them all at once, right? We have a structure. We will be starting off with HTML. We will then use CSS because CSS is a way of modularly modifying HTML, right? You can think of CSS as a modifier language for HTML, right? JavaScript gets built into HTML, so you have to do HTML before you do JavaScript, right? Once we've done JavaScript up to a certain point, we then change tactics entirely, start talking about server-side concerns. On the server, we start off with PHP. We stay in PHP for most of it. At a certain point, we have to break out to talk about databases. That's when we're going to talk about SQL. We'll then break back into PHP, and then do Laravel at the end. But, so Laravel is a bit different. It's a framework, right? This means basically that it's a bunch of fancy PHP libraries, right? So the language of implementation of Laravel is still PHP. So obviously we'd have to do PHP first, right? It adds enough and mixes things up enough that you definitely, it's definitely its own thing. It's got its own language constructs, right? But yeah, basically the whole thing has a sort of natural structure of prerequisites. Does that make sense? Any other questions? Okay, so I don't need to know what the stocks are doing. Get out of my face. News and interests. Turn off. Good gravy. So, not to mention it dates the video. Come on, you know. Although there's nothing that dates a video quite like its date stamp. But so the course this semester is structured quite differently in terms of evaluation versus what we had last semester. This semester, we are evaluating you on 3 things. There will be 5 assignments, which are actually current, what, is it 6? Let's see here.
6.
1, 2, 3. Oh yeah, it's the other course I'm teaching that has 5. 6 assignments, all right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Number 2, there will be a midterm. Number 3, there will be a final exam. Those are what you are being evaluated on this semester. If we go to the syllabus, you will see that the assignments weigh in at 40% of your final grade, the midterm at 20%, and the final exam at 40%. So this is kind of a more test-heavy course structure than we had previously. We don't have a somewhat meaningless distinction between labs and assignments. You may have noticed that the labs were assignments and the assignments were labs last semester. It was kind of an academic difference more than anything else. There are none of these little quizzes either. It's just, you know, come to class, do your practice on your own, right? Do the assignments, study for the tests, pass the course. That's what we're doing this semester. Sound good? And there's not, obviously there's not something every week, right? Last semester there was something every week. This semester there is not something every week. Okay? I've set things up with the appropriate due dates. I think. Wait. No, those are the practices. Yeah, here it is. So assignment 1 is going to be due February 2nd. Assignment 2, the 16th. Assignment 3, March 2nd. Assignment 4, March 23rd. Assignment 5, April 6th. And then assignment 6, April 13th. Yes.
So Monday and Tuesday with this class, it's just going to be like lectures. It's not going to really be like a lab class.
Yeah. Now, you will find that in terms of like practical matters and brass tacks, the classes are going to feel quite similar to how the classes felt last semester. Same room even, yeah. But what I mean to say is, I will do a certain amount of talking. I will then do a demo of some code on the board. My expectation is that you guys do your best to follow along and replicate what I'm doing on the board, and that is basically how I teach. So yeah, it's actually not going to be so very different from what we did last time, except there won't be any work periods. We also, like, I don't know if you guys have looked at the schedule, but on Mondays we have a 4-hour class.
It says 5 though. I just read it. It says 12 to 5. Is it 12 to 4?
I believe it's 12 to 4. Well, wait. 12 to 1, 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. It's definitely a 4-hour class. I'm quite sure they don't schedule more than 4 hours in a block. So basically, the plan for the 4-hour class is there will be a break at some convenient point somewhere in the middle of that, because oh my goodness. So yeah, I like the most I can talk at any given time is about 3 hours. So I personally need a break as well. Any questions about anything so far? Is this making sense? Yes.
So we used Unity and Visual Studio last semester. What will we be using for HTML or Java?
So for development this semester, the Integrated Development Environment, or IDE, which I recommend and suggest, well, I actually have 2 recommendations / suggestions. One is Visual Studio Code. Visual Studio Code is not Visual Studio. It is a lighter weight editor. It has a lot of plugins that we won't use, but it looks different, it feels different. It's basically the modern, updated version of Visual Studio. Also, I'm pretty sure that it still has Mac support, so that's good. The other one that The other one that you could use, one that I will probably be using in class because Visual Studio has not been playing nice with Mohawk apps for me in lectures recently, is Notepad++. So Notepad++ is an extremely lightweight application. Basically all it is Notepad with syntax highlighting, right? And that's about it. But I'll show you what both of them look like. But yeah, we're not going to be using Visual Studio. I mean, you can if you want to, but Visual Studio presents a whole host of its own problems. Basically, like, when we were doing things like in Unity and doing Windows Form applications, it's a lot harder to kind of pick the code out of the base application with those, right? It's like, how would you make a Windows Form if you didn't have the Windows Form like tools and GUI and the toolbox and all of that, right? It could be done, but it would be painful, right? Something that is fundamentally different about web programming, all of the files that we are working with are designed for use by or transmission over the internet in all caps. Therefore, fundamentally, these are just files. Everything is just a file, just a plain text file, right? So, plain text editors are good for plain text files. Unity is very complicated. We are doing nothing so complicated on the back end as Unity is. As we are going to see, all that HTML is really is it's a document generation system. Its entire purpose is to create pages, right? I mean, well, do you know what HTML stands for? Well, you got the first one.
Hypertext. Something language.
Markup. Yeah. So HTML is a markup language. ML. Hypertext markup language. It is, so this presents two questions immediately. What is hypertext and what is a markup language, right? Hypertext is basically 90s talk for a document containing links, right? This was the original conception of the HTML document. It is hypertext. That's why if you look at like old resources, they don't call links links. What do they call them? Hyperlinks. That's right. Actually, in the sort of much older conception of what a link is, a link would link into something else in the same document. A hyperlink links to something outside of the document, right? So that hypertext is text containing hyperlinks, right? So what is a markup language? It's quite simple, really. It's a language which is used to mark up text. Markup means adding the things that make a document more than just plain text, right? Things like headers, bolding particular things, adding links, adding images, adding sounds even, right? All of these things, if you want to insert them into a document, you need to do that somehow, right? You can't just write in the document itself. And now I would like you, oh dear sweet computer, to please insert this file from this place on my hard drive. It's like, no, you need to give it a tag, right? You need to communicate with the machine in the way that it expects so that everything links up correctly, right? So, Hypertext Markup Language, HTML. Make sense? It's not. It should be a breath of fresh air after the absolute gauntlet that was last semester. So, yes, I think you will like HTML. I do. So much for a survey of topics. Are there any? Let me just take a quick look through course policy related things to see if there's anything important I've missed, which I probably have, because you know. So the late policy is a bit more formal this time. So for late assessments, you may hand them in with no penalty, but for every day that an assessment is late, you have burned one of your 10 available late days for the semester. You may use no more than 7 on any one assessment. So basically, you have a bank of 10 late days, which you may use on anything you like, in whatever manner you like. Although please don't use it too many on the final assignment, because then that might push it like past the actual exam, and that wouldn't be good. This number needs, actually that's already written into the policy. Everything except for assignment 6, which is due on the last day of classes, you can't push the assignment into the exam period, right? But other than that, of the 5 assignments we have, you have 10 late days to use amongst them. Average, you have 2 days to use on any particular one that you may wish. It is of course prudent to bank them for, in case you get, bogged down mid-semester. Don't blow them all on assignment 1, basically, But yeah, there you go. Also, your late days do not include special exceptional circumstances, family emergencies, serious illnesses, that sort of thing. Generally, how I do this is just submit it when you submit it, and send me an email, and I will refund any late days that are, necessary given your serious illness or family emergency. Okay? Question?
Those days, do they include like coming to class as well, or is that?
Well, attendance isn't taken, but
Oh,
yeah.
what if those 10 days are finished? What is going to happen?
Like if you don't use them all?
No, if you use
Or
them.
then you, for the rest of the semester, you are required to hand things in on time.
Otherwise, penalty will be.
10%.
Does it say that? Let's see here. If you go over that limit, late assignments will no longer be accepted. So, 0 actually, not 10%.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's wishful thinking, right? But like, I am not an ogre. If you are reasonable with me, I will be reasonable with you on such matters. Particularly as this is, a bit of a smaller group, and I know that everybody in this group is a good faith actor. Sometimes you have to write these policies in case you get students who are acting in bad faith, right? Fortunately, we shouldn't have that problem this semester. So, you be good with me, I'll be good with you. Okay?
Great.
Okay. Any other questions about that policy? Yes?
So basically, like if we have an assignment due on Monday and then we sent it on Tuesday, that will take only 1 day. But if we sent it on Wednesday, that will take 2 days.
Correct. And you don't have to tell me that you're using late days.
We just send it to the late day assignment, or?
Oh, no, that is actually just a number for me to keep track of how many you have left for you.
Okay.
That, so that you can see how many you have remaining.
Okay.
You don't have to inform me that you're using late days. I will deduct them automatically. You just submit your assignments so long as it's good for the late day policy, it's graded, don't worry about it. Yeah. Any other questions?
What was your break?
It's pretty good. Yeah. Christmas is always a bit busy, but you know, and we got there's this this cold that was going around that's actually kind of you know.
So bad.
Yeah, we had it like the week after Christmas.
Yeah,
So.
some of my friends, that's it.
If you haven't gotten it yet, anybody in the room, it seems to be extremely catchy, so you probably will by the end of the week. It seems like just going on observation of like friends and family, mostly family who have gotten it, it seems like level of personal fitness has a really strong effect on this particular one for whatever reason. So like really it like the less like physically active of my wife's relatives got hit the worst with it. So you know.
I will be dead then.
I don't know. That's you know that's just my observation. That thing they say about you know if you take care of yourself, yourself will take care of you. That actually seems to be true in this case. But yeah. Okay, so that's the late pay policy. General course information.
The textbook.
This is no textbook. No. I'll show you what the textbook is. This is the textbook. So this is a website called W3 Schools. This is generally considered something approximating the ultimate authority on the languages we're going to be learning. It also has some helpful, useful exercises for you to help practice and study. And a lot of these languages, like you can click a button, it'll take you to a little screen where it will compile some code for you, so you can play around with it, which is quite cool. W3 Schools is very good. It is, you know, it's very good. So if you take a look at HTML, for instance, you have a number of topics along the sidebar. For example, headings. It gives you what that looks like in HTML. Try it yourself. You can see what the actual HTML code looks like. And you can modify it. Here, run it, and you can see how your changes affect the code, which is a very handy thing, right? But of course, if you want to actually deploy a website, you're not going to write it in W3 Schools interactive tool, right? But this is it's a very, very good and useful tool. I would, like, if you have any, if you have any immediate problems or questions about how a language feature works, it's like, oh, the assignment calls for this and I really don't know how to do that, or what that even is. The very first thing I would do if I were you is look up the corresponding page in W3 Schools. I would go there even before I would go to the thrice accursed chatbot. Because this thing will actually show you embedded in the web page what the web page is supposed to look like. And the thrice accursed chatbot does not do that, right? So these articles are very clean, clear, to the point. They don't give you anything you don't need, and they are accurate, right? So that is my recommended aid. That should do us all the way through JavaScript at least. At that point, once we get into PHP, the PHP has its own reference site, which we'll be using, but for the time being, W3 Schools is the most excellent resource. Okay? It even has videos, if you don't like mine. It also has little exercises. Oh, correct.
Yes.
Good.
Yeah, I heard Dario's good.
But even, it'll even like ask you to insert little code snippets as like a little training exercise. Obviously, like, you'll need to do more than just these, but when I started teaching at this institution, I hadn't touched HTML in probably 20 years since I had done it in high school, right? I did these, and then I taught it. So, yeah, but of course, you know, I also am a person who does programming languages for a living. I would expect it to take you perhaps a little bit longer to get up to speed on it. But excellent, excellent, excellent resource. Sound good? Question?
Has it not changed that much in 20 years?
HTML?
Yeah.
Oh, it's changed quite a bit in 20 years. Back when I was doing it in high school, like HTML5 hadn't come out yet. Yeah, there's been quite a bit of substantial change to HTML over the years. Web languages are ones that you have to keep up to date on.
By changes, does that mean they're just like adding functions that you can use, or like?
It's not so much just adding new functions, although everything has to remain back compatible. There are secondary considerations. Like, for example, when I did HTML, CSS didn't exist, right? Another thing that's been a big movement in web languages, particularly in HTML, is standardization. There are certain ways that you put an HTML file together that, you know, make it visible to search engines, right? That's a pretty important one. Like the type of metadata that you put into it is important, right? Increasingly important now. Like, have you ever wondered how like the little thing that Google pops up, do you want to translate this page? You ever wonder how it knows that the page is not in the language of your operating system? Well, it's because in your HTML file, you put a language code. This, you know, this page is in Spanish, or this page is in Korean, or whatever. And the web browser, it's not like looking at the text and analyzing it to determine what language it is, because that, believe it or not, is actually a really difficult programming problem to solve, right? Detecting what the actual language is that's been entered, that's more work than you want to do, right? So what do? We leave a little tag in the header that says this page was made in this language, and everything else is simple from there, right? Relatively simple anyway. So yeah, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Cool. You want to make an HTML page? Yeah. Okay. So fire up Mohawk Apps. Every time. There we go. So, the application that you want to launch is either Notepad++ or VS Code. I will show you VS Code to begin with. It's a decent default. You can actually kind of, like, from this point forward, you can kind of use VS Code as your, like, that's your default editor for any language you care to write in, unless you're trying to do something a little fancier, you know? All right, let's see here. There it is. This is VS Code. So it'll bother you with a lot of like options that you really don't have to worry about. Picking your color scheme is extremely important. I will use dark high contrast as that shows up a little better on the projector. So the first thing that you want to do when you are working on something in VS Code is you want to open a folder so that all of the files that you're working on are all contained in one place, right? In web development, we will be working with HTML files and JavaScript files and CSS files. There will be multiple files, right? So it's not appropriate to do all of your work, it's not appropriate to dump all 6 of your assignments in one folder. This semester, you'll need to have separate folders for everything you do. Okay? So, let's open a new folder. There we go. Inside documents is fine. Folder, let's say this is first HTML. Oh, probably have to make that first. Select folder. There we go. Do I trust myself? I will choose to trust myself. So, you will come to appreciate the simplified interface versus VS Code, certainly. So, this is your Explorer pane. This shows you the contents of the folder that you have just opened. Right now, the folder is empty, so there is nothing in it. This, once we have opened a file, will become the editor pane. This is where our actual code will go. Now, it's a little bit different this time around. We do not, while we may at some point have a play button inside of VS Code, that would be an add-on or an extension. And for our purposes in this class, we will not be running our program directly from the program that we're writing the program in, right? In web programming, that makes even more sense, right? What shows an HTML page? What program? Java? No.
CSS.
No. So there is a program that's on your system. In fact, I have an instance of it open right now that views web pages. What is it?
Browser?
The browser! That's right! So, the thing that compiles our HTML is a web browser. To view our web page, we open it in a web browser the same way that we would a web page from the internet. Does that make sense? So there's no real concept of like running the HTML inside of this interface. You got a question?
Yeah, if you make an HTML, just puts it on the internet right away.
Oh, heck no. No, if you make an HTML file, all it is a file on your computer. You have to take that HTML file and put it on a server, then somebody has to request it from the server. We'll get into it, don't worry. We're not to the point where we have to worry about client-server interaction just yet.
Okay.
Yeah. So far, everything is still very nice. Like we are doing client-side programming for the first half of this course, so we only really have to worry about the client itself. So, let us create our very first, security guy, our very first HTML page. If you click the new file button, give it the name index.html. Now, the name index.html is special. If a file's name is index, that means that that is the page that loads when you try to load the folder, right? A lot of the time when we are loading web pages, we are not specifying the file itself, we are saying, open this folder, right? Index is the default page that loads when you access a folder. So most of the time, our HTML page will be called index. All right, so far so good. So from here, we wish to insert what is called our HTML boilerplate. This is a set of code which should be included by default in all HTML pages. It's part of the standardization. In VS Code, you access it very simply. You type the exclamation point, and then you hit tab. And there you go. That is your HTML boilerplate. We will go through this in something like a bit more detail in a later class. At the moment, I just want to get a hello world up and running for you. So, a couple of important points. Title is the name that appears in the browser tab for the page, right? So, I'm going to call this Baby's First HTML page. So, the general structure of HTML is that we have text and we have tags. Everything occurring inside of angle braces is a tag. Everything not inside of tags is text. So, with this being a good example, Baby's First HTML page is the text. Title and title are the two tags. The tags bracket the text, right? This symbol, the forward slash, indicates a closing tag. So we open the tag, then we close the tag. For example, here, we open the head of the document, we close the head. We open the body, we close the body. We open the HTML portion of the document, we close the HTML portion of the document. Not all tags require closing tags. Some are only informational. For example, this one at the top, doc type HTML. This tells us that the document is an HTML document. This is important because they're not always going to have HTML file extensions. Does that make sense? Also, when this is transmitted over the internet, it may or may not have its file extension sent with it. Okay? So, let's actually put something into the page. Hello, world. So now, the question is, how do we view the web page? There are a couple of ways of doing it. One is to find the file inside of our file system. If we take a look, I put mine in Documents. I think I did anyway. Did I? I might have been in my user directory. Oh, I hate Windows so much. Users, me, there we go, first HTML, index. So you can see that this is a Chrome HTML document. If we double click on it, it asks me what I want to open it with. I say Google Chrome. hello world. And if you take a look, you'll see that the title inside of the browser tab up here is Baby's First HTML Page.
I'm not able to see it.
Go back to, save it. Oh, no, yeah, that's the X icon. Cancel, Control S. Now try reloading. So this is actually a very important thing to know as well. The browser will not automatically update the page when you make modifications in VS Code. So for example, if I wanted to do something very simple, like add a heading, H1 gives you a big heading. Hello, class, and H1, save. You can save that, but if you look in your browser, nothing has changed. What you have to do is refresh the page. Control R will do the trick. Make sense? So far, so good? All right. Yeah, that's Baby's First HTML. So, technically speaking, this is not well-formed HTML yet. So, headings are very important. You have H1 through H6 for the various heading sizes, but there's another one. If you're doing block text, what you should do is you should wrap it in a paragraph tag. Paragraph tags are very easy. The tag name is just P. You'll notice that VS Code inserts things like closing tags automatically. This may or may not be convenient. You may wish to turn it off, but often it's useful. So, you'll notice that the web page itself doesn't change when we do this, but according to HTML standards, this is now meeting the standard. Okay? Does that make sense? Yeah, I think we've done about enough damage for one day. It's good to see you all again. I hope that we shall all have a productive semester together.
Thank you.